Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening, and welcome to the Black Male Impact series, Leading with Purpose and Building Legacy. Today we have an amazing guest. I know we have been having questions about health, especially Black men's health. And so tonight we have Mr. Mark Bristol. I think I
Brezzell.
pronounced it correct.
Is Brezzell. Yep.
Brezzell, sorry, Mark Brezzell.
No.
I'm always be pronouncing my guest name incorrectly, but thanks for the correction. So I'm going to give Mr. Brezzell the opportunity to share more with you after I kind of introduce him. But tonight's conversation centers on something that is often overlooked, but obvious, absolutely essential: health, longevity, and sustainability leadership. Right, so that's what we're going to be talking about. And too often, Black men are taught to carry responsibility for everyone else while neglecting their own well being. And for those who are here for the first time, I'm going to ask you to please share this conversation. And my name is Dr. Richard A. Cross, and I'm the founder of the Black Male Impact. And as I said earlier, our guest tonight is Mr. Mark Brezzell. And he is in the health and wellness field. He's a health and wellness strategist, and he brings to us 30 plus years in clinical and medical affairs. But before I give him the floor, I just want to, share something else with you before I do give him the floor to share more with you. We are, as I said earlier, we are taught to push through and to endure and prioritize performance over personal health. And that's why the conversation tonight is going to be so critical, especially for us as Black men. But the reality is this: you cannot lead effectively if you are not well, and you cannot build legacy if you are not sustained. So, Mr. Brezzell, thank you for being here with us. And, just please share more of your experience with our listeners tonight before we get into the conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity of being here this evening. Yes, as you stated, I have many years between medical affairs and clinical medicine. I'm clinically trained as a cardiovascular perfusionist. We are members of the open heart surgical team. You have we call it the three-head monsters. You have the cardiac surgeon, you have the cardiac anesthesiologist, and then the perfusionist is the one we maintain the patient while the heart is stopped, and we have the patient hooked up to what they call a heart-lung machine, which allows the patient to be sustained while the heart is stopped and the surgeon is able to operate. So that is my role. I spent 10 years in a hospital, Toledo Hospital in Toledo, Ohio. Eventually, I transitioned out of surgical clinical medicine into medical affairs across various sectors. My last company that I was worked with was actually a medical device company, and we were developing, interventional devices, particularly stents. For to open up blockages in various parts of the body, particularly a carotid stent to open up the blockages in the carotid artery, trying to reduce and prevent the risk of stroke, and also in the peripheral, part of the body, which is basically below the waist and the vessels down in the legs and even into the feet. And so we had various interventions for that. So it's very eye opening from that perspective when you know that one of the complications of diabetes is peripheral vascular or peripheral arterial disease, and that leads to problems down in that. So that was very fulfilling to be able to participate in projects like that. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've been a type 1 diabetic for 26 years, so I know what it's like to manage a critical condition through various work environments. as far as dealing with stress. And clinically, I'm trained. I should say I graduated from Johns Hopkins many years ago, where I got my clinical training, and I happened to be the first African American to graduate from that program back in the early
Congratulations.
the mid '90s. So I have, it was a great, tremendous experience. Met some wonderful people there at Hopkins, and I still have relationships to this day.
Oh man, that is great. And again, congratulations on being the first. That means you have paved the pathway
That's right.
for the others, to have that opportunity.
That's
And
right.
that is something that we cannot and should not take lightly, because someone had to start the journey for
That's right.
others to believe it is possible. And again, I just want to say thanks for being here, because one of the things that we sometimes overlooked when it comes to us, especially as Black men, is our health,
Yes.
and we
Absolutely.
cannot, for what we want to accomplish, we cannot take our health lightly. So that leads me to I have a series of questions here that I'm going to be asking, but
I'll do my
I'm
best.
going to um, take as much from you. So I may have follow-up questions to what you share with us here this evening. So
Yes.
my first question to you, though,
Yes.
is what inspired your commitment to focusing on the health and longevity of Black men?
Well, it's obviously being a black man, and I have a lot of relatives. I have friends that have struggled with various chronic diseases. Feel it's starting off from stress related all the way down to heart attacks, strokes, and even diabetes. I think when I wrote my book a few years ago. I'm also an author. I meant to share that I met a friend of mine who told me basically he knew I was diabetic, but he just said, man, he pulled me aside and was telling me his story that he had been in the hospital for almost 3 weeks, that he almost died as a result of his condition. His kidneys were only functioning like 27 or 30% at the time, and he said they didn't think he was going to make it, but he pulled through. He was very resilient. He was able to make it through, and it was after that discussion when I was inspired. I'm a diabetic. I spent years in the hospital. I spent years in industry developing various types of devices, and even on the biotherapy side. I said, now is the time for me to go out and tell others and try to motivate others about health, because I've seen it on both sides of the table, so to speak, and I know that there's a lot of inequities that exist, and I know that the healthcare delivery system sometimes isn't our friend. But I know that it was important for me to step out of my environment, so to speak, to be about educating, and particularly for black men, because when you look at the data, obviously we're number one in so many different subcategories and criteria. So much. But and there's a lot of reasons for that. But the fact of the matter is that I felt it was my duty and my calling to educate to the best of my ability. I have, like I said, I have a very unique skill set in that regards. I felt that I was placed to be a voice in the wilderness, and that's what I'm trying to do now, and particularly our men as well. I realize that we're dying and suffering from things that we don't have to suffer from, and so I'm like, I don't want to go out like that, and so I'm going to do all I can to help to mitigate us being susceptible to so many of these challenges. We have enough against us already. The last
That's
thing
right.
we want to deal with is our health.
Well, and that's right. And sometimes, having the experience ourselves,
Yes,
can be what drives us to
yes,
come up with solutions
that's right.
for others. Because a lot of people, find their purpose in life based on their own experience. And sometimes, it's because you would take the initiative
That's right.
to do something about it.
Absolutely.
And as you mentioned, you're one of the ones in the wilderness,
That's right.
trying to help those who are sometimes suffering and may not know the best way to go about doing so or
Yeah.
finding solution. And sometimes not only to provide a solution, sometimes they see others
Right.
step forward and taking care of their health, they then say, you know what, maybe I should take care of
Maybe I
my
should do a
health
little better.
as well. So I really,
Absolutely.
appreciate that you have taken the initiative,
Yes.
because other people out there may have the desire to do something,
Yes.
but haven't taken the step to help
Absolutely right.
support others in the community.
Hmm.
Which leads me to my next question.
Yes.
When you reflect on your journey, what experiences shaped your understanding of the importance of health in leadership?
I think my experience is personal. When I was initially diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic, it caught me completely by surprise. You could even say that it blindsided me because I was pretty healthy. I never really saw any signs of being even at risk for this. Even though my brother was type 1 as well, but his was the reaction to a drug that he received in the military years ago. He was only young. He was a kid, 20 years old. And he got a shot, and it's knocked out his pancreas. And within 3 weeks, he was in the hospital as a type 1 diabetic. Well, for me, it's just interesting because, as I said before, I didn't consider myself, even though he was one, because of the circumstances, I didn't consider myself at risk in that regards. And it just, what they don't share about diabetes in particularly is that it's as much a psychological impact as it is physiologic, because I was, it really threw me for a loop. I was in a hospital at that time. I was doing surgery, so I was in a very high stress environment on top of trying to manage a chronic condition, and you in dealing with all the highs and lows with that. And I just felt it was important, that opened my eyes. Because a lot of times, one of the things that I've discovered, and the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now, is because health is one of the most underappreciated aspects of your life. We take better care of our cars than we do ourselves, and that, and it's just a matter of focus, because health is not an issue until it's an issue. Health is not an issue until it's a diagnosis. Many people don't really care about your health in that light unless you now are given a diagnosis, and now now all of a sudden your whole shift changes and your whole perspective changes. My goal is to prevent, or I should say, is to enlighten you before you get to that point. The diagnosis is always that aha moment, but if you're aware of risks, if you're aware of things that are going on inside your body, if you're aware of some things ahead of that time, then maybe that will give you at least enough ammunition to try to say, you know what, maybe I better go get myself checked out. Maybe that will, because this is all about timing. Timing is of the essence. The sooner you find something out, the sooner you're investigated, the better your outcomes can be.
Well, man, that is so true. And you shared a valid point. All the stuff that you said that we need to do and be aware before,
Right.
but you said something that we may even overlook, and maybe even the listeners
Yeah.
may have missed it,
Yeah.
where we take more care of our cars
Yes.
than we take care
That's
of
absolutely true.
ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
It
If you
is
think
so.
about it. Yes.
And you have heard that before, like,
Hmm.
and also what where people may put good fuel in the car and bad fuel in their body. They're not going to put something.
I say that all the time. If you have a Lamborghini or you have a Ferrari, and it tells you it requires premium gasoline, are we going to drive that car down to Bubba's Server Lot, down the street, and get put in just regular low grade gas in that thing? No, if we're so cognizant of all of the maintenance, we follow to the letter what is required for that car's maintenance. But yet, when it comes to us, it's and that's why I use many times when I present, I always equate our health to automobiles, because when you talking about finely tuned machines, but yet we make sure that everything is in accordance to the specifications. Everything is important.
Yeah.
It's important for us. So that's what we work on. But yet, when it comes to us, you know,
Yeah, we don't. We just put
that's right.
anything in it.
That's right.
And when we should be putting in premium.
That's right.
Uh, but I'm really glad that you bring that perspective forward because um, we sometimes really neglect our
Yes.
health, especially as Black men. And it's something that we must put to the forefront, especially, not just to live better,
Right.
but also to break away from some of the stigmas
Right.
that we have been conditioned to think and
Absolutely.
believe.
Yes.
And when we hear, taking care of ourselves, it's not a taboo,
Yeah.
but becomes a natural part of our own existence.
It's a
So, my
necessary thing
next
for us.
question
Yeah.
to you, and we will get to talk more about some of the things that you do.
Yeah.
Many Black men are taught to prioritize responsibility over personal well being. How do we begin to change that mindset?
I think it's a concerted effort because we are people of responsibility. I'm married. I have three adult children. I've always raised, I raised a family. And, I've been married for almost 30 years now. It comes to a point where I can't be effective, and I think the simple answer to that is the best productivity is availability. And the fact of the matter is that if I'm not available to be able to be this world, this ground shaker, this guy that really goes out and being there for my kids or being there for my relatives and family or my friends and be a support, being there within an organizational structure, whether it's work or if I'm more out than in, how effective really am I? And so that kind of is my driver, is that we if how can you be effective in any particular in any decision that you make, in any course of activity that you have, if you're laid up on a ventilator? How am I being practical and effective if I'm not taking care of my own self, and I'm not now available to do any of the things that we see in this society? How can I offset that if I'm a victim?
That is true. And, and just listening to you and just taking the initiative and going out there and why we need to, and being that it's a concerted effort for all of us, and we have to take that responsibility. I know that you want others to be joining you out there in the wilderness to help other
Yes,
Black men,
yes, please come help.
that's right, to realize the importance
Yes,
of their health, and not only just the importance, but also have the knowledge to share,
yes,
to what to do, what not to do,
that's
what's
right.
the best practices
That's
and
right.
stuff like that. Because sometimes that's what makes a difference. Being that we may not be paying attention,
Right,
having someone who not only being an advocate for it,
right,
but also have the knowledge and experience. And I've seen
right.
others who have suffered just because of ill health.
Yes,
And so it's really important for those who are listening and you're in health care,
yeah.
come out and be a part of
Share,
the
absolutely.
solution.
My goal is just provide perspective, because many times I tell people all the time when I present that when you have a certain kind of car that you want to buy, and when you buy that car, isn't it interesting how you think you buy something so new, unique, and so individualized, but the minute you drive home from where you bought the car from, whether it's the dealership or where you bought, all of a sudden you start looking around and you're like, wait a minute, I never noticed this many cars. I thought my car was so unique, and now it's like everybody has a similar type of car. You see it all. It's all about perspective. And so my goal is to heighten our awareness so that we can step back and start to really take notice of things that's so critically important for us and for our wellness and well-being.
Well, you're right, because the more we become aware of it, we may the person who can help us maybe right there.
That's right.
But without the awareness, we don't
Right.
even see that the person is right there that we need to get
That's
the
right.
help from. Which leads me to my next question.
Yes.
In your view,
Yes.
how does physical and mental health impact man's ability to lead effectively?
It's absolutely critical when you say physical mental health because they all are congruent, they all work together. So many times we live in a society that separates, particularly when you think about our health care. Like, for example, you'll go to the doctor and they'll say you're at risk for getting a heart attack. Well, if you're at risk for a heart attack, you're also at risk for a stroke. If you're at risk for a stroke, you're also at risk for peripheral arterial disease. It's the same process, just in different locations. So we're really good at separating out risk, separating things out. And so my goal and what I try to share is to combine and help people understand the totality of this thing, how comprehensive it is. It's not one thing and one thing. So I think when you think about mental and physical, when your physical's not right, it affects the mental. When the mental's not right, it affects the physical. I mean, they're totally congruent. They're totally comprehensive, and so we have to understand that sometimes when people aren't feeling well, even mentally, I'm tired. But you have physical manifestations, and one of my focuses, in matter of fact, which is kind of unique, is dealing with the vascular impact of stress. Stress is not just a state of mind. Stress is also a physiologic event. And so when I try to help people understand that, because they ask me, well, what happens? What's some of the challenges of that? Well, when you undergo all of this mental, stress, it has physical manifestations, and after a period of time your body is going to start breaking down because you cannot maintain that fight or flight syndrome. You can't maintain that state for a long period of time. Eventually something's going to happen, something's going to break down, and it's going to, you're going to start slowing down, and then you're going to see the manifestation of various conditions, whether it's diseases or syndrome, whatever. But the fact of the matter is they go hand in hand together. And people say that mind over matter, but it's so true. There's some people who have your attitude determines your altitude, and particularly when it comes to health. If you feel that you're going to get sick and you don't feel that you can get better, you can recover, it prolongs the process. But your attitude in and of itself can heighten your body's physical manifestations, and a lot of people don't understand that. I could, I only have a certain amount of time, but I remember my days in the hospital where I've seen that happen, where people come in and sometimes they don't have very good prognosis for their own selves, even though they've been given a good prognosis, and sometimes it takes them longer to recover, all because of their mindset.
Well, man, that is so powerful and a great reminder because, as you said, a lot of times people do think it's just a matter of mindset,
That's right.
cause some of the stress, and not realizing
Oh,
that,
it's
the physical part of it
right.
also affects how they feel and how they go about their own lives.
Absolutely.
So, my next question to you is. Um, what health challenges disproportionately affect Black men, and why is awareness so important?
you know, Cardiovascular disease is a top killer for us. Even strokes, but a lot of that, I would say, vascular indiscretions or vascular diseases are a big problem for black men, and a lot of that's because of our experience. A lot of that could be from also hypertension is another one as well. But I think the vascular component is a big problem because of our experience. The vascular, many times because of health inequities, because of dealing with all of the challenges that we deal with as black men. We have a higher stress level, which automatically precludes us to be at risk for many of these stress-related conditions that I was referring to. The thing about stress, and that really is such a big deal, is we call it cardiometabolic, meaning that When your body is releasing all of these biochemicals into your system, and it puts you at such a state where your body is almost on edge all the time. That causes problems even in the vasculature of your system. Some of these chemicals can cause your body's immune system to react, so you start developing lesions and injuries within your vessels, and that opens up the door for the mechanism which brings about the hardening of the arteries and the blockages within the arteries, and all of that stuff can be all because of that mechanism, and it's multifaceted. So as black men, because we are always on edge in some respects because of the society we live in, I think it's more important for us at all times to do what we can to kind of offset that by exercise, by diet, and by doing all of the various things that we can do. Go on a walk. Stress reduction techniques is paramount for our longevity in the societies that we live.
Stress reduction technique.
And one of the things that I present when I I'm a public speaker. A lot of times, a lot of companies bring me to talk to their employees. I talk to people one on one. I talk to people one on many. It doesn't really matter. But I think if we can reduce our stress, our longevity will multiply, will be enhanced dramatically. That's really what's killing us. And then there's, I call it the 8 health principles, where you have fresh air, you have sunshine, you have you have water, exercise, our diet, all of these things, and rest. Rest is critical, and I'll get on that in a minute. But rest is one of the most underappreciated components of these 8 health principles, because that is where your body repairs itself. Rest is when all the is recovery take place. Rest is when your body, all the insults and infarcts and all of the things that endured throughout your day, your body is now exhuming and replenishing and refreshing, and that's why rest is so critical. But when we're so busy and we cutting down where we surviving on 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep, your body's not having enough time to reset, and then you're going right back into that environment the next day, and then you keep that up. That's where again your body's being harmed, and conditions will start to manifest itself over time.
Oh yeah, as you're talking about rest, I think we have been conditioned, to go the extra mile all the time, as black men. But that's a great reminder
Yeah.
to us as black men, because sometimes we are trying to, make all ends meet,
That's
and
right. We got to
forget.
do what we got to do, as they say.
That's right. And we forget about our
Yeah.
health, and especially the importance of rest.
Yes.
And I know a lot of men here listening can attest to that part of their lives
Yeah.
where, they may have neglected. And
Hmm.
sometimes, maybe because of work and maybe doing multiple jobs and stuff like that, and which again affects us from a health perspective. You were about to say something?
No, I'm just saying the exciting thing about all of this is it's correctable. It's not a doom and gloom scenario. It's just effort. We have to make up in our mind we're going to do better, and you'd be amazed at how well you can bounce back from all of these things. Yeah, stress is manageable. Stress is doable. Even if you can go for, like I said, even if you're a very stressful day or you invest a very stressful situation, the fact of the matter is there are very simple techniques that can help you overcome many of these onslaughts that will provide you a great deal of recovery and a great deal of longevity.
Man, and just thanks for reminding us and the importance. And I'm just putting up a few of the comments from some of the listeners on the screen. At the end, I may end up addressing a few, but I just put them up as they pop up here. So others can see, and just in case they may have
Mhm.
comments that they want to share as well.
Yes.
So, my next question to you is, how do you encourage Black men in leadership roles to prioritize their own wellness while carrying heavy responsibility.
You know, as I said before, I try to help them. Sometimes when we think of health, we think it requires so much effort, but it really doesn't. It's very simple principles. It's really more so of a mindset. It's a paradigm shift as far as how we view what's necessary. Many people, when you say, well, exercise, well, I don't have time to go to a health club because of my schedule. Well, you don't have to go to a health club. You can just walk around the building. Walk up the steps, walk down the steps if they have buildings, walk around the parking lot. Simple things. You don't have to have a membership of a health club to be able to meet a lot of these prerequisites, and a lot of these things. So and then I say fresh air, sunshine. You'd be amazed. That changes your attitude. A lot of times you have the 3 o'clock crash where now you're just basically struggling to get to the rest of your day. But if you step out, go drink some water, stay hydrated, go walk around a couple of times, just kind of exhale a little bit. Then you could come back. You'll be amazed at how you're able to freshen yourself up in a very short period of time to be able to maintain, put your foot back on the gas. But the key to this thing is intermittence. You have to take your foot off the gas to allow and coast to allow yourself to catch up. If you keep pushing, that's going to cause some issues.
And thanks for that reminder. That's a very important reminder. And you shared some simple things that we can do,
Yes.
but yet they are valuable. And I hope the men here listening taking heed. We can't just be pressing gas. And sometimes I'm
That's right.
talking to myself. I'm talking to myself right now,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it is so important. Right now it may feel easy,
Yeah.
but as time progresses, it
Right.
becomes not only harder,
Hmm.
but it may be the effect may be a later on thing.
Yeah.
So it's important that we start taking care of our health early, or
Hmm.
get into the habit of taking care of ourselves. And
Absolutely.
it's not always complicated.
Right.
It's the simple things that we can do
This is
to do so.
this is the one thing I do want to interject, because I think this is where we're the most guilty of, is no one knows you, no one knows your body better than you.
Correct.
That's a doctor, that's a nurse, that's a therapist. It doesn't matter who they are. You know you better than anybody. So you can tell when something's not right. And so I always admonish people, even executive. Look, if something starts to get out of whack, check it out, hit pause, and get it looked at. Don't keep pushing aside symptoms, because all that is doing is kicking the can down the road. And you really don't want to, excuse me, you really don't want to be in a position where everything kind of blows up, because now you're forced to take yourself out of the game. If
Correct.
something's not right, get it checked out.
And that is so important. And my next question, you kind of addressed my next question, but I'm still going to ask the question because somebody may have missed what you have said earlier. So, how does stress now? What habits or daily practice do you recommend for Black men seeking longevity and sustained impact?
Well, again, like I said before, you have to take as good care of yourself as you do your car. So that means that you have to eat right. You can't get everything quick. You can't do everything quick prep. Try to reduce all the processed stuff. Try to eat more whole foods. Try to put better quality fuel into these complex machines of ours, instead of putting in junk, because garbage in
Garbage.
truly is going to be garbage out, and a lot of times it's the output on performance and how we're feeling and how well we're able to fight off diseases and we're talking about every year you got the flus floating around, but there's things you can do to kind of fortify yourself so you're not as susceptible, or if you do get sick you bounce back so fast and you can reduce your time in half just because you're healthier. So there's a lot of little things. I encourage you to like I said, go for a walk, exercise, work out, drink a lot of water. It's necessary for you to have hydration. Don't replace water with pop, with coffee, with alcohol. The fact of the matter is that the best fluid for you is the very simple fluid. I know that people say, well, but that's what's necessary. That will help keep our bodies in tip-top shape. And get some fresh air and sunshine. That helps you open your mind, helps keep your mind sharp, so you're able to handle those big time deals and very analytical type of environment. You can't do that when your mind is bogged down. When even for me as a diabetic, a lot of times one of the major impacts of diabetes, it impacts your mind. As your sugar starts to drop, your concentration drops, and you can't stay focused anymore. And so it's necessary that you pay attention to these little things to stay sharp, to stay on top, and stay productive.
And thank you. I appreciate that perspective and reminder to all of us and to every black man or man listening
Yes.
this evening. So my next question to you is: how does stress affect black male leaders, and what strategies help manage that pressure?
Well, I think stress is a big impact for us because we always have to do the most. We are always put in a position where our counterparts can do half of what we are required to do. And so that puts a great deal of pressure on us to compete, depending on where we are. Where if it's your own business, then you basically are trying to make sure that you're out there, you're marketing, that people are connecting with you. Whereas even in the corporate structure, and I was in a corporate structure for 23 years, so I'm fully aware of how that works. And it's the same situation. Well, a lot of times our expectations are much higher, or they may look at us with a third eye. Are you as good? And when many times we're twice as better. So I think that's kind of the biggest challenge is understanding the dynamics in which we're involved in. We know that they're going to try to throw more on us, so we're going to have to do what we can to make sure that we in top tip premium shape to be able to handle a lot of this stuff. We may not be able to control the environment that we're around, but we definitely can make ourselves much more resistant to survive in that environment.
Well, and thank you, and I appreciate that reminder and perspective because we have heard it several times that we have to do twice as much to survive in those environments. And there was a research that talks about it, especially when it comes to our
That's right.
longevity and our health, being that we don't get the same privileges as everyone else, which in turn affects us. Once our health is affected, it doesn't matter how much we are being paid.
That's right.
It's going to go straight back into spending that money.
Right.
So we're not even enjoying it.
Right.
And that's a great reminder and perspective that we must take in consideration. And now that we know, actually, we already know that we're going to be doing more. So we need to find ways to counter
Right.
that. It's either we're going to reduce maybe whatever processed food or the diet, change the diet, and
That's
make
right.
sure we get exercise in.
Yeah.
So what role um, does community support play in improving health outcomes for Black men?
It's incredible. I mean, the role for health, communication and public health strategies is critically important because a lot of people, aren't privy to some of this information. You know that particularly in our neighborhoods in the inner cities, you know, we're sometimes given the worst conditions. You know, we don't have access. You know, well now things are transitioning, so that's a good thing where there's more Whole Foods availability there than it used to be. Before every other corner you know, a fast food restaurant or something. You know, everything was quick. Everything was cheap, quick, and unhealthy. So I think that community health is necessary because it helps us understand what the risks are. It provides education on ways to mitigate those risks. And I think that you know, a lot of people sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes by hearing certain things and where you may step back, it's like, wow, you know, I do this, and you know, I know I like to eat my pig feet and my hog jaws and you know and you know I like, oh, that's what I like. But when you recognize some of the risk involved in eating high fat, you know, foods and you know, highly processed foods and that sort of thing, it kind of gives you a pause when you recognize that, wow, am I really, is this really, you know, how am I helping myself? You know, I mean, it tastes good, but you know, if it has this kind of an impact on me, maybe I need to reconsider this type of thing. And a lot of times in our neighborhoods, and particularly in the inner cities and some of the other areas, you know, we aren't necessarily inundated with information on how to get better or how to, you know, how to prevent ourselves from getting sick, because many times, you know, we're not privy to, you know, because of health equities and inequities, I should say. Many times we're not privy to the necessary education that's necessary for us to stay healthy, even in situations where socioeconomic challenges may exist.
You know, and that's where, you know, how valuable, I should say, you are, and with your commitment in the community, especially, you know, when we are not exposed
Yes.
or have access, you know, when it comes to equity,
Yes.
to learn, to have the right resources,
Right.
to make sure we are first aware
Yeah.
of what needs to be done and why or what will happen if we don't. So, you know, again, you know, I appreciate your commitment to the cause and to the community, especially when it comes to awareness.
Yes.
So, my next question to you is, how can mentors and leaders model healthy lifestyle for the next generation?
I think it comes with strategy. Like I said before, many times we just live our life. You know, we don't really necessarily pay attention to, you know, these types of things. But I think when it starts with recognition. I think when you realize that you're not, no man's an island, and that people are watching you. You know, and a lot of times they wonder, do you really practice what you preach? You know, for me as a health strategist or, you know, health coach, you know, if I'm rolling up somewhere, you know, on a cane or wheelchair or you know, I'm 500 pounds and I could barely huff and puffing up the steps, you know, how impactful will I be telling them about health or telling them about, you know, exercise? You know, I'm just, you know, I'm not trying to downgrade any demographic. I'm just saying, I'm just doing an example that we have to practice what we preach. And
Right.
I think that's where it begins. When we step back and kind of take our own, because you can't, it's really hard to teach what you don't do.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
so you know,
fine.
if I'm putting together, you know, if I'm, you know, because even now I've changed my diet. My wife does a good job. She you know, try to puts me on more whole foods. I don't eat a lot of processed stuff anymore. You know, I have to make these transitions, and I try to go for a walk. I try to, you know, drink more water. I try to, all these things that I talk about, I try to make it personal. And I think that's where it begins, is when you don't speak on things as a theory, but you think of things more practical because you can relate to it because you're involved in some of those practices as well. So it starts with us.
That's right. And I know one of the conversation we had,
Yeah.
you were out on the trail running. So I was
That's right.
wondering if any of the young people saw you out there running.
No, they didn't. No, it wasn't a lot of young people at the time because I was there earlier in the day, so most of them they're probably at work. But
Okay,
yeah, I do
okay.
I do bump into other people, and yes, when you go around, I know this. My daughter goes to the University of Michigan, so when she's on campus, I mean, they're more in that mindset of health. But the challenge with that is that you can have premium health, but then a lot of times you may not you may be great in one area and kind of lackluster in others. So you health you eat well, you walk, but then you stay up all night every night. So I'm saying it's every part of one of the East Health eight health principles. One of the key element is temperance, self control, balance. You gotta be comprehensive and be balanced all the way around. Any good thing, too much of one, any good thing, too much of any bad thing is bad for you. You got to find that middle ground and try to maintain some level of balance.
Man, that's good. That's good. As we're talking about modeling it for those who are watching,
Yeah,
but sometimes we don't know that they're watching, but they're
that's right.
watching.
They're watching.
That's right. Someone is always watching.
Absolutely.
So which leads me to my next question. What are some misconceptions about strength and masculinity that prevent Black men from seeking help for their health?
I think the biggest misconception is that the consequences of poor health is weakness. I think that many times people feel that if I have to if as I was sharing before, if something's not right, get it checked out. And for many people, you feel that it's a weak thing to do when you have to step up, take your foot off the gas, and when you have to go and get checked out. When you have to, but it's such a misconception because it's actually the exact opposite. If you don't, if ever pause. I mean, can you drive your car outside of running out of gas? But can you drive your car forever? I mean, can you? Everything has limits. Everything has and the fact of the matter is that for us, for some reason, we feel like we have to be super people. I'm Superman. I can't take my foot off the gas. I can't get out the game. I can't. I got to keep pushing because if I slow down, somebody's going to catch up with me. Well, news flash. If you are slowed down where you're forced to slow down and you end up in a hospital or you're in therapy or something like that, somebody's going to get it's the same outcome. The fact of the matter is that if you take the best care of yourself, is to stay on top of your health. It's just and you have to keep that balance. You can't think of yourself as being weak because you become sick or injured. That's not a weakness. That's just a consequence. The weakness comes when you feel that that you can overcome it without any intervention, that you can just keep doing what you're doing with no expectations of negative outcomes. That's the weakness.
Well, man, that is so important, and that's a valuable reminder because we do think, taking care of our health or going to the doctor is weak,
Yeah,
and that is something. It takes more strength, to be honest, to go and seek the support that
yeah.
is needed, and to seek it before we actually need it, to do the checkup and stuff like that.
I tell people all the time, how strong are you when they come and view you? I'd rather be seen than viewed any day.
And man, say that again because I don't think everybody get it. I heard it.
I'd rather be seen than viewed any day. So whatever your
And that
perception of me is, as long as if you can view me, I can still press forward. I should say, if you can just see me, I can still press forward. But when you're viewing me, my fate is sealed at that time, and so it doesn't really matter. I've lost that fight. But the fact of the matter is we can't, as men, we can't feel that I don't have the time to again, as I keep going. Do you take the time out to go to get your oil changed? Do you take the time out to make repairs in your home? Do you take the time out to manicure your lawn? Do you take the time out to do the necessary things? Where's the weakness in that?
Man, that is so important and a valuable reminder. As men listening, taking care of our health is not weakness; it is strength, and it's
Absolutely.
better to be seen than viewed. All
That's
right,
right.
and let's keep that in mind.
That's
Uh,
right.
so my- that's right. So my next question to you is: in your experience, how does emotional health influence leadership and decision making?
Well, I think the big key to that, and this is me coming from a health perspective. Emotional health helps with your guidance, helps with your wisdom, helps with your intelligence, helps with your ability to learn, helps with your ability to lead. All of that are will be dramatically impacted if your health takes a hit. So many times, even our emotional health is impacted by physical manifestations. So if you're not feeling well, it's very hard to continue to lead when you're physically out of whack, when you're struggling physically. You can be the most intelligent person in the world, but if you're dealing with pain, if you're dealing with suffering, if your body's just not allowing you to perform at a high level, that's going to affect you mentally, and then eventually all that physical mental manifestation all holistically now is going to cause you to really bog down, and you're not going to be very effective or very efficient in leading anything, because you're going to be struggling, you're going to be behind the eight ball.
And that is so important. And again, another valuable reminder. And I have a few more questions here, and I want to make sure I get through these questions. But I'm almost at the end. But
Yeah.
this is a valuable conversation
Mm-hmm.
and a valuable reminder to all of us as men, as
Yes.
black men, when it comes to our health, our emotional health, and mental health and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We have to take that seriously.
Absolutely.
So my next question to you is: how do you balance professional success
Mm-hmm.
with personal health and well-being? I
Well,
think we have challenges here.
I think that I think it's comprehensive, because if you're not healthy, attaining success becomes very, very, very difficult, because you can't have one without the other. And so you have to sometimes recognize that, wait a minute, let's, for example, if you're starting a business, you know the work it takes to get that business off the ground. But if you get sick and you're now no longer able to engage, you're you're no longer able to do outreach, or whatever your business vocation that you pursue. I always say that your health is your greatest asset. And I say that because without health, dreams can die. That's the bottom line. The fact of the matter is that if you cannot physically, execute any of the strategies that you've implemented in your mind, and that's that's been short circuited by poor health, your success rate goes down dramatically, because who can operate under those circumstances? You need your health to execute. It's a simple formula. And the more your health is compromised, the more your execution will be compromised, and the more your goals, or your avenue for success will be compromised.
That is yeah. Without health, you decrease the chance of achieving your dream. And that is so important because if you can't go towards what you're working
It's a
towards,
very simple formula.
um,
That's right. You
you,
could be
you're
the
not going.
smartest man in the room, but if you're the sickest, how effective are you?
Wow, that is so important to keep in mind. because you could be smart, but without health, that smartness may not be beneficial to anyone,
That's right.
because your health, and we have to take care of our health. We cannot stress that, enough,
Absolutely.
and it is so important. Go ahead.
One of the things that when I do my presentations, and for those on the audience, I'm a public speaker. You can invite me to your companies. I'll be happy to come and share this information. But I think one of the things that I always share is I shared a quote from Steve Jobs. Where he, on laying on his deathbed, he's like, "Look, I will trade my fortune. I'll trade all of this just so I can get back up and live my life, because I can always rebuild this." But the fact of the matter is so he's reached. You don't want to get to a point where you have reached an end of life scenario, and then you reflect on things that you could have done better. You have an opportunity to do that now. Today, make up in your mind that I'm going to try to do better now. I don't want to be on my deathbed where now I don't have the options to make those corrections.
Man, that's really profound, and a perspective that we all need, to take in consideration. My next question to you is, when we talk about legacy,
Mm-hmm.
how important is longevity in being able to fully realize that legacy? I think we know the answer, but we want to
Yeah,
hear.
absolutely. You know the answer. If my legacy is shut off, well, there's two ways of looking at that. I look at Dr. King, and he was a man. He left a legacy. He was impactful, but it was cut off short. So even though he didn't outlast it, his legacy still went on ahead of him because he made an impact while he was here. And I guess for me, it starts immediately. Start making an impact. Start reaching out to your sphere of influence. Where it starts with your family. To me, everything starts with family. You can be the most profound individual, but you could speak to thousands in packed stadiums. But if your family, if there's no relationship with your own kids, how much of that legacy is profound. Yeah, you may impact people, millions of people out there, but in your home scenario, your own kids look at you as this baby. So to me, I think it begins with starting at home. I think it begins with just trying to have healthy relationships within your home, and then doing your best out there as you're building out as you say, as you're building out, helping other people, helping to improve the lives of those within our communities. Because we know, even now our community is under constant attack. We're constantly almost trying to uh, justify our existence, and we know that we are the foundation of everything that we see around here. But yet they try to flip the script and make it seem like we're the ones that have all the problems. But yet, even with all that, I try to make sure that the I'm going to do what I can do to make a better environment and a better society, and be a witness to those that are coming up. Because even now, right now, my vocation in industry, I worked within medical affairs with various companies, and I still have people that contact me and say, "Hey, Mark, how do I go about doing that type of role, that you were doing in industry?" And I help them through that process, because it takes one to gain one. I try my best to do what I can to be a witness. The more experience you gain, the more experience you have to share. And so
Right.
I try to make sure that it's not just about me. And I think that for any legacy, the building to take place, you always have to be about, not yourself. You always have to be outward looking and not inward looking, because people can see the difference. And
Right.
so I'm just about going out there and witness. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing today, because I'm not trying to build a legacy per se. All I'm trying to do is preserve the health of our people, so that the legacy can go on, so that we can continue to reach our potential. Because I know as a former clinician and as a health advocate that it no legacy will ever outlive poor health. The fact of the matter is you have to you have to take care of yourself so that you can be an impact in the environment around you.
And that is so important and a great reminder. And as you said, just want to share this part where others reach out to you for you to share the knowledge that you have gained, so they can do the work that you're doing,
Yes.
because we don't want you alone out there doing the work.
Oh,
We
I
want
can't do this
others.
forever.
Right. Yeah, others to join you
Yes,
out there doing the work, but also which to whom much is given, more is required.
that's right.
Much is required. So you have gone ahead and have gained the experience,
Yeah,
but so now it's although you say you're not really focusing on a legacy, but you're still that it is part of your legacy,
yeah,
because even if the world don't know you,
yeah,
you may impact somebody that the world knows, and at some point they will talk about you, that they gain some insights and some knowledge or some guidance from you, because sometimes individually we may not change the world, but we may change someone's life that goes on to impact millions of
that's
lives.
right. That's true.
So we just got to do our part, and however it goes, once we do it, especially if we have a passion
That's right.
for it. So before I ask my final question,
Yeah,
so you have shared with the listeners, the work that you do. But if you don't mind, please share with the listeners where they can reach out to you and connect with you and support the work that you are doing.
absolutely. I have a website. It's www.mdb as in boy live LIVENO I should say CONNEXT. That's MDB Live Connects.com, and that's connects with an X. And so you can reach me through my website. Just set up a time where if you wanted to go one on one, if you want to talk to me individually, or you were interested in me coming to talk to your organization or your business. I do one on one coaching. My one-on-one coaching encompasses not only just health education and guidance in that regards, but also as an advocate and as in helping understand the healthcare delivery system. It's amazing how everything we're living in an information age, and there's a lot of information out there, but a lot of it's so disconnected. And so
Right.
it helps, I can help connect some of these dots. I call myself the professional connector, where I kind of pull all these things together so it makes sense. Because a lot of times, even for doctors, as they're consulting their patients, a lot of times they give them a lot of information, and you try to go and Google some of this stuff. You're like, this doesn't make sense, or I understand it, but I don't see the big picture. And so, I can help people. I'll do that a lot with my family. But my main thing is trying to, I'm available to come to organizations to help workers to be more productive, speak to CEOs and bosses to help them to have a more productive workforce, because people misunderstand. They think that wellness is an actual strategy, but no, wellness is about profitability. Wellness is about functionality. Wellness is about productivity, because if your workers are out sick, or if you're out sick, on either side of the coin, that impacts the organization as a whole. So I talk about that on an individual basis. I talk to people about health, and I learn a lot of things. I give an example, and I'll just make this real quick. I know one of the things that I focus on, one of the serious complications of diabetes is, again, peripheral arterial disease, which can lead to amputation of limbs. I know many people have known of relatives, and particularly in the older days, that have lost limbs, whether it's legs, whether it's below the knee, or whether it's feet, because of poor blood circulation. Well, one of the things that I also educate on, because I was a part of it in its development, is that there are interventional techniques that you can do that can open up vessels in your legs and vessels in your feet, and so it can offset and preserve your limbs. It's, you know, I always tell people all the time, if amputation is the first and only recommendation, seek a second opinion, because the technology is out there. Through there's clinicians that are out there able to do these types of interventions to help preserve your legs. You need your legs. You need your limbs, and that's only if as necessary. If the tissue loss or that sort of thing. But you know, if there's a pulse and there's no radical damage, then there's hope. So the fact of the matter is that I tell people all the time, and a lot of times we aren't necessarily privy to all of this information, and they don't necessarily go out of their way or trip over themselves to privy us to some of the latest interventions that are out there. So that's just something that's just kind of a little caveat, something that I share to people to help them understand. Because diabetes in particular is 3 degrees of separation. You know somebody who knows somebody, or it's not very far out of your scope of your sphere of influence.
Oh, thank you. I know you share your website. Are you on any of the social medias?
Yes, it's the same. It's, for most of the social medias, I got to think of it offhand because my social media person does all that. But I know that you can find me using MDB Live, LIVE Connects. I know for Facebook, for Instagram, and my name. And then I also have a book, A Matter of the Heart, my unexpected my unexpected journey with diabetes. You can find this on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles online. And that's where I share my experience, how I became a diabetic, the early years of my diabetes, how it's not, how I was angry for years. I was truly an angry black man because I couldn't believe that I had had come down with this condition, but I kind of help to simplify and help people understand that you're not alone. That even feeling upset or frustrated is not an uncommon feeling with something like this, and that that there's people you can talk to about it. But the main thing is that you get it checked out, because with a condition like this, and a condition, any type of condition that's cardiovascular or cardiometabolic in presentation, timing is of the essence, and little practical ways of managing yourself is critical to help reduce any type of long-term complications.
Well, man, thank you. Thank you. So, my final question to you
Yes.
before we conclude today is, if a black man watching this conversation feels overwhelmed by work, stress, and life responsibilities, what first step would you encourage him to take toward improving his health?
The first step that works immediately is to step away and exhale. You have to, if you feel we feel the screws are on us, and you have to step away, and it's all about now self-preservation. That's where I say, go for a walk, get on a treadmill, drink some water. Make sure that at night that you getting, because exercise will help you to sleep better if you're not sleeping very well right now by moving, just movement. So I guess the quick thing would be movement, diet, and fresh air and sunshine. Those are the things that will help for you to kind of get yourself a sense of peace, because you'll be amazed. It doesn't take much that you just walk around, and kind of exhale, take in the environment, and then you kind of get back. That will help more than you will ever know. Many people, like I said before, we exercise to the nth degree, but walking is one of the most effective and complete exercises that anyone could ever do.
Man, thank you. And as simple as sometimes it's just the simple things that we need to
That's
do.
right. That's right.
Sometimes we think it
And
needs
we
to be
make it attainable.
complicated.
That's right.
Yes. sometimes we do think it's complicated, and it's sometimes it's just simple. And I keep popping up a few of these response on the screen, so others can see the response. And that final one that I just put up, it's by the still water scripture, just highlighting, just the conversation and
Right.
how they enjoy the conversation. And also this one here, walk inspired TV. Walking was has helped me a lot. I feel better and younger. Another great black male impact interview. But I want to say, man, I do enjoy the conversation so far, and it's a great reminder to everyone here, especially to us as black men. So as we close
Yes.
tonight's conversation, I want to leave you all with this: leadership is not only about the work we do, it is about how long we are able to continue doing that work. If we are truly committed to purpose, to mentorship, and to building legacy, then we must able to commit to our health, our balance, and our well-being. For too long, strength has been denied as, um, sorry, for too long, strength has been defined as endurance, pushing through pain, stress, and exhaustion. But real strength is not just endurance, real strength is sustainability. Taking care of our health is not selfish, it is responsible, it is necessary,
Right.
and it is part of your leadership.
That's right.
Is so important because someone is depending on you, not just for what you can produce today, but for who you can continue to be over time.
Yes.
That is what the Black Male Impact is about, growth, awareness, and transformation. And I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. Stay intentional, take care of yourself, and continue making an impact. And I just want to say again, man, thank you for taking the time to come and share. And I hope this is not our last conversation
Absolutely.
because we have to keep talking about our health. So, you can look out for another invite from me in the future because we have to keep this conversation going when it
Absolutely.
comes to our health. Thanks again for coming, and thanks to all the listeners who have been here. The Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired. I'm looking forward to our next conversation, and thanks for those who have engaged with today's conversation. Thank you.